Thank you very much for joining us once again on Ponte Politique. Umtungo uyengwa Malinga. Undima Kankumbuzo welcomes you into this another episode of Ponte Politique, a live streaming of our program. As you know, the culture of this platform is that we are available on 3 platforms. If you are watching with us on YouTube, you are welcome. Here is it, Ponte Politique on YouTube. You can subscribe and you can share, you can make your comments. We are ready to engage with you on that platform as well. We are also available on Twitter at Ponte Politique, ensure that you retweet, you like, and you participate in whatever way possible that you can. And on Facebook, we are equally available, Instagram, TikTok, and so on and so forth. So if you are available with us on any of the platforms, you can go on Ponte Politique and you can share the video. It will so that it can play on your particular platform. So we are in another Sunday. It's the month of April, and I have already said that I welcome you all for coming through, and I thank you very much for being part and parcel of these conversations that we tend to have every Sunday at 6 o'clock, and then during the week on Monday at 12, we publish these sessions on YouTube, and on Wednesday there's one as well, and there's also another episode that also goes out on a Friday. Please make sure that you continue to follow our platform. Many of you understand, especially those that are in South Africa, they understand that the month of April in South Africa has been regarded or is regarded as one of the most important months in the country, to a point that it is called, or it is referred to as a Freedom Month, because in 1994, the 27th of April, the first democratic elections in South Africa took place. And therefore, for that particular reason, South Africa was therefore declared a democratic state, or a freedom from apartheid, or whatever you want to refer to it. So South Africa is therefore having this particular month of April as a month of freedom, if one were to put it like that. Officially, that's how it is regarded. So today we are going to be engaging on some of the issues that relate to that, whether this particular aspect of freedom really makes sense to the majority of these people who are freed, these people who are free, as in the people who were disenfranchised, the people who were oppressed in South Africa were Black people or Africans, if one chooses. So therefore we want to understand whether these are really the facts on the ground. Ne? That is going to be our discussion, and I have a guest today with us that is going to be sharing with us his insights on these particular topics, with a specific reference to his book that he has authored. But secondly, I want to apologize to you that for those that have been following us for over the past few months, they would have noticed that there's been a discomfort in my voice, and therefore sometimes it might cause some element of unease in the ear. So I want to apologize for that, but we keep on moving. We're trying our best to get better and to recover fully. So if you experience those problems where I do and I reflect some discomfort, please accept my apology. Umntana enkosi Malinga uyengwa yundima unkumbuzo inkomo ebomvu welcomes you into this conversation. Our guest, Thamsanqa Malinga, he's written various opinion pieces and different issues, but especially with regards to South Africa. But also his latest publication is called Blame Me on Apartheid. And it's him that we are bringing in today to form part and parcel of this particular conversation, and he is going to be talking to us about a few aspects in relation to the ideas that he has put on paper. Mtaka Malinga, siyabulela bhuti ngobukho bakho kule platform kaPon the Politic. Kunjani bafo?
Nphilile Mtungwa, thank you for hosting me, and thank you to the viewers of Ponte Politic for welcoming me as well. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, it is our pleasure, and I'm sure that it is our pleasure, and it is the pleasure of those that are listening as well, that are listening with us, to ensure that they are able to listen and hear what is it that we are going to be talking about. And Ngubani Thamsanqa Malinga, and for the benefit of our viewers, who is this person? Who is this author that we only engage with him from these ideas and the other books that you have written? Who are you?
Thamsanqa Malinga is a son of the soil. I was born and raised in a township of central western Jabavu in Soweto, to a teacher, uNomsa Malinga, uMampandla, who's originally from Fort Beaufort, and my father, who's Elliot Malinga, was from Alexandra Township, but he had to migrate to Soweto. I'm a son who grew up with, in the world of letters, because my mother was a teacher, so I got to be in love with the world of letters, reading quite a lot. And in my early days as a young person, I got to, engage with bent literature. I got to engage with literature and got to engage with the names of Tsietsi Mashinini, the names of Winnie Mandela, and I was around the age of 11, 12, 13, got to engage with the names of Bantu Biko, Robert Sobukwe, and that quite of fascinated me from that very age. And I grew up within that, and I read quite a lot from that age, and that's when I started engaging with political literature. And around the age of and I was moving quite a lot. I was a nomad, because with all the political uprisings, you had to move and stay with that family, move and stay with that family. And I stayed in various townships in various provinces around the country. I ended up with my matric in KZN. I stayed with a family that hosted me, the Ngobo family, and the old man there was a man who drove trucks, but he really loved to listen to the news. So I always sat with him, we watched news, and he would always ask me questions, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And that, in me, I realized at a later stage that the old man, as he was asking me question, he invigorated a fire of being very analytical of current affairs. So in that way, I grew up to be very analytical of current affairs, and that's how I then became an analyst in terms of politics, and even at varsity, So yeah, but with growing up loving the world of letters, I was also writing. So I matched the two at a later stage in life.
Is it? And
Yeah.
and you're saying currently, currently now, what do you do as a focus area?
Currently now is a focus area. I'm currently in the world where I'm a consultant. My specialty is corporate communications. So I'm consulting in the world of corporate communications. But because my love is in writing, I write quite a great deal. I write opinion pieces, and I get to do quite a lot of analysis, commentary for news platforms, both our news platforms in the Republic, the SA. Well, let me not mention names. News platforms within the Republic, and I also write quite a lot of opinion pieces, as you know. And yeah, I write. I've written. I wrote my first book and published it during lockdown. My second one is currently in print, and I'm busy with the third one as we speak now. So yeah,
So,
I delve quite a lot.
so what is that first book that you've written?
The first book is called, I wrote, as I said, Blame Me on Apartheid,
Yeah,
colonialism, apartheid, and the legacy of townships as peripheral
wonderful,
spaces for Africans. Now,
wonderful. That's why
one
I
might
wanted to
say,
make sure.
why?
I
Why?
wanted to make sure that you so that you must be the one who claims your book, so that people do not think that we are just. You must claim your book so that we know these are your ideas in this book.
Yeah. Now, one might say, okay, how did it come about?
Yes,
I was writing a lot of fiction, and like I said, I stayed in Newcastle, and in 1993, a young man was born in the house where I was staying. His name is Mpho Muloto. I was staying with the Ngobo family, so he took his father's surname, which is Muloto, and when he was born in 93, and you know, we had that watershed moment in 1994 where we went into elections. So Muloto then grew up as a born free, and then he then wrote a book called From the Township. There is the book, you know, From the Township. So in this book, he came and delivered to me. He said, "Malume, here's a book that I wrote." Where with black families, in as much as you are not part of that family, but you know, the children there will call you Malume. I'm not part of the family, but he came and said, "Malume, here's a book that I wrote." He wrote as a born free, and he wrote about life the way he sees it in the township. So I remember reading the book, and you know, he then one part where he wrote, he says, the township was orchestrated to be a prison, you know. And then I then made a note, and then underneath I said, mental one, if you may. And then I started reading. As I was reading, I started making notes.
so you were influenced by Born Free, basically. And
Yeah,
this is important. This is important because ideas. You see, sometimes abantu bacinga fanele the ideas they fall from the sky. Well, ideas do not fall
yeah,
from the sky.
yeah. No, ideas do not fall from the sky. You know, remember, as I said, I was in the middle of a fiction, a novel. As a fiction, and this young man was here. He wrote about experiences, and he was writing. And as he was writing, he wrote from a born-free perspective, and I felt, you know, he did not really grasp what he was writing about. Yes, he was bemoaning, and I felt, no, man, you
And
know,
some of the
my boy,
things that he was probably saying, well, you agree with them, but you feel like there's a deeper essence.
yeah, you know, and
I'm
you
I'm
know, he would
Malume.
be like, yeah, man. I said, no, Mchana, man, hey, you really do not get where this is coming from. Yes, you are raising an issue. You are bemoaning this issue, but they are deep. You know, this thing is very deep rooted. You
Okay,
know,
okay,
and
I
and then
see.
and then I had to then say, let me first get to a point of telling him where the township is coming from. But then
Okay.
I said to myself, no, let me not respond and have a dialogue with him. Let me put this down and have a dialogue with all born frees, and including
Especially
my children.
especially now that he had put it on paper as a way of respecting his craft.
Yes. You know, and including my children, and also others who are my generation who do not really grasp this thing, who might be staying in townships but do not understand the legacy behind this. You know, people we have this thing of we grew up in an era of glorifying the township.
I want before you get there, Malink, before you immediately get there, I know that we'll move from that. That would be our starting point. But the title of your book, for some, we know that the blame me on something has been popularized by the biography of Blog Modisane in his book when he says blame me on history. And in your case, there is a different case. So can you talk to us about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, like I said, I grew up a very avid reader, and in my reading years, in around the ages of 15, 16, I was already reading the writings of the drum generation, Ken Temba, Net Nakasa, Blok Mudisane, Louis Nkosi. I mean, in my teens, I was reading those guys, and as I was thinking of a title of this material, I remembered reading Blok, and Blok's autobiography. He wrote about himself, but he wrote about himself in a way that he felt that everything that he was, history had subjugated him and had limited him to not being a fully the type of an individual he had wanted to be. And I then said, you know what, the township has limited many of us to not reaching the level we had ought to be, and I then borrowed that title to say, blame me on apartheid. We will get to that when I said that. And because I said that townships are a legacy of apartheid. So I borrowed, and I say so in the book to say, I have borrowed the title from Blok Mudisane's Blame Me on History, because Blok felt that his history had oppressed him so much so that he did not realize his full potential, and townships are doing the same to us. Yes.
Okay. Now, I see. Now, out of the book itself, you've got various themes that you are engaging on the book, and I want to focus on four. Four. You speak about the locations, Ikasi or the townships. You speak about the education system. You speak about the finances, where you say money matters. And then also you speak about the issue of religion. And in relation to Ikasi, most of the time people tend to say, I mean, uncheck mina, or unjonge kahle mina ndiphume eskom. And ikasi lakho cannot be compared to my ikasi. And in your book, you are saying native locations is a modern phenomenon. Its first location was established in 1848, and you link this with land dispossession. And then you are then saying, actually, these areas which we are embracing so much are modern day camps. So take us through that thinking of why are you saying we must stop romanticizing the locations, Bafo? because singabantwana basekasi, at least mna I'm one of those people abazalelwe ekasi, abakhulele ekasi. So why ungasafuni ngokuthi sithi angikhohlola ngiphuma khona?
Yeah, I give a background. We have we've written songs, especially during the Kwaito, the emergence of the advent of Kwaito. Hey, mina ngiphume zola emabhodini kwamshaya zafu wonke umuntu uyazi. And and I was like, hey, how do we glorify that we come from places where people are killed day in, day out? And I also talk about that when I talk about the issue of crime. I give a background of that to say, when our ancestors lived freely on their land, and then they were dispossessed of the land through when the missionaries and the colonialists, with the proxies who were the magistrates and all of that, started dispossessing them of their land. They then started forming these native reserves, when they were burning their fields, and then people started migrating to where the colonialists were. Then from there on, they would build native reserves where they would put the blacks, and the rest of the land then gets taken over by these colonialists. Now, from the reserves, then they get to settle the few blacks. This is the same strategy that got used in the Americas, where the Native Americans were the people that we call Red Indians, were then put in these reserves. If the studies goes to show, this is where they actually learned that system of putting the indigenous people in those type of reserves. So they put us in little spaces, then they take the bigger chunk. So hence then started this system of putting us in the very little tiny spaces, because they've dispossessed us of the bigger chunks. So that was way before the 1913 Land Act. As then the country developed, and as they found gold and diamonds, they started building hostels. When they started building hostels, were because these areas are developing, then they would then take the young men and put them in the hostels. And with the hostels, the way the hostel is structured, the hostel is structured that it has one entry point and one exit point, the same as the native reserves that they had structured before.
Yes.
So the hostel has one entry point and one exit point, because the aim of the hostel is that those men that have been put there, the same with the native reserve, is that you are there, you stay there. Your only time you come out, it's when you go out of the reserve or you come out of the hostel to ply your labor at the mine, or at when you go to the colonialists to work there. So,
and you must
from
return
the native
back
reserves,
into that.
and then you come back to sleep there.
Okay.
So from native reserves, they found gold, diamonds, they built hostels, put young men and elder men who were willing to work into those hostels. They developed hostels from the native reserves compound system. Now, I even say, I go to a point of saying, I know that because my father worked for a soft drinks company, and he used to go to deliver soft drinks.
To deliver that, yes. I've seen that in the book. That you are talking about a personal experience of this particular compound. So when you are making a reference, you're talking about something that you've seen as a young person.
Very much. We would drive in there into a mine, and then he would go in there, and within that mine itself, there would be one shop where my father would go and deliver. And in that shop, all these young men would be sitting there. If they are not in the shaft working, it serves as a beer hall. a restaurant, they play football, and it's just everything. And to a certain extent, it serves as a mashonisa, all of that.
All
So
the
they do not
amenities,
have,
all the amenities are there.
yes,
Everything. Don't get
oh,
out. Finish yourself
don't get
here.
out. Yeah, this is where you are. And if you are not in the mine shaft or in your room, you are here doing whatever you do, whether you're drinking beer or you having fun, you playing football or you playing jukebox, listening to music, or you just, this is
And
what you're doing.
and Malinga,
There's nothing
so
else.
you are juxtaposing this with especially the old townships. And we know that they've
Yes,
got one entrance, they've got one exit. We know that they've got all the amenities. Currently, they even bringing the
very
malls
much.
into the location. So you are juxtaposing these things, and you are saying this is a concentration camp. So don't be happy about it, because it's not meant
Yes,
for a good settlement. By the way, that's what you are saying
yeah.
in the book.
Yes, and I say that is then from the money from the mining compound. They then said, okay, because then these areas are growing. These areas where they found gold and diamonds are growing. They then started building townships from this concept.
Okay,
Now I then go and say, I stayed in Soweto. I grew up in Soweto.
I
Soweto
see. I
had
see.
had two main exits. There was a street called Rodiport Road. Now it's called Elias
Okay,
Motsoaledi. Rodiport Road used to go to Rodiport because there was Durban Deep Rodiport mine. So that used to take you to and fro to Durban Deep Rodiport. And then there would be Soweto Highway, which takes you to Crown, Boysens, and Offerton, because then there would be mines that side, and then perhaps Johannesburg CBD. The others came in later. Then there would be Potchefstroom Road, which now is the N12, which took people to Bergesdal, where there are mines. So those were the three major routes in and out of Soweto, but they were linked to mines as well.
Mm. So the
And
purpose of it was to ensure that there is a way from the concentration camp into the mine, and also there's a way from
yes,
the mine into the concentration camp.
back
That's
into the
that's 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 the
concentration.
thinking.
That's all you needed to do.
Mm. And
Those were
and now
that's how they were designed.
and Malinga, we're talking about now the period of pre-apartheid, during apartheid, but also you are claiming that it is the same model that is happening now post 1994. You are saying that the current government is administering and is creating the same model of townships as a periphery where there is social death. And how do you then make this argument for us so that we can be able to say, hey man, even today we thought apartheid is gone, but you are saying no, that's not the case. The townships remain the same area which they were, the concentration camps.
I say, look at the RDP townships that are built. They are untarred. There is no tar road. There are no amenities for our kids. Those kids that grew up there, like the mining compounds, the RDP townships, you will not find that there would be, community halls and all of that. There's probably two main roads in and out. I can make an example of Bramfisher in Soweto. You can only access Bramfisher via the intersection that is Elias Motsoaledi, and then people started making their own entrance that is at the main road that's next to the Durban Deep, the closed Durban Deep mine. But other than that, there is no any other way to access Bramfisher other than that one entrance that's at Elias Motsoaledi. That's the RDP townships. Now let's
Mm,
look at the what I call bonded townships. These
okay.
new small,
Mm,
they're called
we, we,
cosmopolitan.
we call them cosmopolitan developments.
I call them bonded townships. you know, You look at those ones as well. In terms of the access, the size of the road, they try to make sure that they squeeze as many houses
as possible.
as
Yes.
possible. And the size of the road, I mean, you can't even drive two cars parallel. And you look at do they make the urban planning there, do they make sure that there is planning for schools? No. Is there planning
For
for business?
recreational facilities.
No. Is there planning for businesses to come and set up their structures there so that people do not have to travel long distances to work? No. I mean, I was at one yesterday visiting a friend. That place is about what, 4 years developed now. It still doesn't have a school. There is not even a means for a school.
And you are saying, when you look at all of these things, you are saying you need to get out of that hellhole if you can. And why are you saying that? Because already you have opened up by saying that stop romanticizing the townships. Abanye abantu ke bazawuthi hayi uyathengisa wena, by saying that get out of the townships. And you are saying we're not, get out if you can. And why do you say
Yeah.
that?
Because I want us to get away from the mentality that says, when someone has moved away, we always say, hey, bra, awusabonakali unqabile, you no longer even come to visit ikasi. Let's move away from that mentality. When someone has gotten away, let's allow that person to get away. And also, that also inspires you to be able to say, you know what, this life for me does, and for my kids, because sometimes you have to think, you have to have that vision to say, for the future generation, do I want my kids to actually, go to school here? Do I want my kids to suffer the very same consequences? Bloke Mudisane had to get to a point of leaving South Africa illegally and then getting to Britain and staying in all these countries, and at the same time thinking, how do I get my family out of South Africa? So because he saw that there is no future for me here, so we have to have that mentality. We have to have that
get
mentality.
out.
But at the same time, I say, if you are able to get out, if you are still trying to do it, but if you are stuck there, find means of making sure that you survive. And to survive, you must. Yes.
No, I get this. I get this thinking of, and when you talk about this, because you are saying you can't romanticize this place because this is a bad place. And one of the things that it shows that it is a bad place is one example about education system, about the kids. 4 years now into a new development, there's no school. And in your book, when you talk about the theme around education, you say that the current education system in South Africa, run by the ANC government, uses apartheid paradigm. Somebody says to you, but how is that possible? We're in a free democracy, and this guy comes here and say we're using apartheid paradigm. What do you mean by that?
I make a lot of I paint a picture using various aspects. One, I say, I delve into Paulo Freire, and then I say we use the banking approach of teaching. The township education system uses the banking approach of system, just pushes information into kids, and then at the end of the year says, okay, kids, you're going to write a test, and then it wants to withdraw the information. It's not the type of education that says, how do we develop this child into be a fully rounded individual that can survive the world out there? How do we develop this child to be a business leader? How do we develop this child to be something else? You know, yesterday I had a discussion with my friends. When we were growing up, you know, there were so many aspects within the education system that if you didn't fit the 8 to 2 you know, class system, you would be taken to a technical college. And the government, the ANC government, came in and closed some of the technical colleges, you know, and they closed teacher training colleges and all of that. And now it's just a matter of, you look at our kids, they go in there, they fed information, and they come back, and some of the kids, they not fitting into that mainstream. They're not even coming up with schools to say this child does not fit into this model. We need to create a specialized school for this. So it's still what Paulo Freire says, it's a banking system. Just want to push more information to the kid and then let them write a test and say, oh, they've passed. And what people say, that we normally judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you know, instead of looking at other ways to judge a fish. And then secondly, I then say, our education system, like apartheid, which excluded parents, is still into that model, which looks at excluding parents. You know, when Bantu education, when Verwoerd and Enselen developed Bantu education, Black parents felt we were excluded from this, so we can't, we did not even have a say. You know, our education system right now has what is called, you know, socio-economic exclusion. So in a way that when white schools are supposed, when Afrikaner schools are supposed to take Black kids, they come up with all sorts of excuses. They raise fees. They say you must have the kids must speak the Afrikaans, and the government allows that. It
And
allows
there's these dimensions, there's these mother tongue, there's these all of these elements to make it difficult for the Black and the African children to get into that. And they also use the Constitution as their base of doing these things.
As their protector, you know. Now it's even worse with exclusion. You get Panyaza saying, I want to make paperless education. How many parents are able to go
to even
online?
operate a cellular phone that is a smartphone? Now, I wanted to ask you that because I had a question here about you are saying now, I'm asking about what about the kids who are therefore influenced? They're coming from Soweto, they're coming from Soshanguve, they're coming from Tanzania, they're coming from whatever location that you have. They have to drive all the way to Sentin, those from Soweto. They have to drive to Durban from the locations. They go into the center of the. What does this do to the mind of the child? Especially that Panyaza has been the proponent of this way of thinking of they must go to Sentin, they will be accepted. What do you think this does to a kid?
You know what it does? It creates this notion that there is the periphery and the center. The child comes from the periphery in the township, and because now she or he has to go to the center, has to now try to want to be accepted. You know,
To fit
I have
in.
to try to be part, to fit in. I have to try to be part of the center of being. If I'm not part of the center of being, then I am a non-being. That is why the book says the townships are peripheral spaces for non-beings. The child, if the child still sees himself or herself as a non-being, if he doesn't or she doesn't try to fit into the center of being.
I get
That
it.
is
I
what's
get it. So,
happening.
so this has got a psychological effect. You know, me, I call these kids migrant scholars. I call them migrant scholars because their parents wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning to catch a train, bus, or a taxi to go to Sentinel and all these other places to go to work, and they also follow the same trend as young as they are to go to these schools, and then after some time, they have then accepted this reality of being a migrant scholars. Their parents were migrant workers. They become migrant scholars, and at some point, if they die in Soweto, they will probably be migrant ghosts in there if there is something related to that. And this, for me, this is a bad thing. But you talk about it in your book, and I want to encourage people who are watching and listening to this conversation that you can go and order the book. It's a very interesting book. You send an email to masefako book@gmail.com, or you follow us at me Apartheid on Twitter, or at Blame Me on Apartheid on Facebook. You will be able to get your way of getting the book, or you can also go to other places. I will mention it at a later stage where we can get these particular books. But one of the topics that you talk about, and I want us to run it quickly, you say in your book, especially around the money matters, you say Black people tend to have a lot of apathy around the issue of talking about money. And one of the things that took my interest is the funeral service adverts. You speak about how our Bobo, our clientele are creating a perception that there's a certain type of a funeral that you must have, and you talk about these things, and how do you see this? These types of funeral policies or whatever, because we don't have the money to bury people, but you say even that it has its roots in the apartheid system, a financial exclusion approach.
Yeah. You know, as I was doing rounds in Soweto and taking pictures for the book, there was one advert that disturbed me. It says "Uska kolota mutu," and then it advertised the policy that says you can take up this policy so that you know, after funeral you don't owe anyone. And I was like, so we owe people after funerals, you know. And there's another one that's currently running on TV, and I ended up writing to the Advertising Standards Authority. I think it's been pulled now. That says part of the benefits, it's an after tears, and I write that after tears, it's not even an African thing. You know, I quote another article that says it's just not even an African decorum. So I say all of these, they trace back to colonialism and apartheid, which siphoned money out of Black people. You know, during colonial times, when the land, people were dispossessed of the land and had to start going to work at the mines. These guys who owned shops in those native reserves, they would go to these, they would allow the old men to give them a kettle, to say, hey, here's my kettle, or I don't have a kettle right now, but my son needs to go and work at the mine. Can you give him money to work, to go to Johannesburg? When he starts working, he will pay you, he will send money back. So that's how the system of siphoning money out of Black people started. You know, then get Black people sending money home, then starting to pay the white man who owns a shop there by the village. So that's how the system of then starting to siphon money out of Black people. And then you get to every mall that you see nowadays, there is a cash loan business. Those cash loan business studies show that they were actually started by these Afrikaners who were working for the nationalist government when 94 started. These guys cashed in their pensions.
Their pensions.
Yeah, they cashed in their pegs and started these loans, these cash loan businesses, and that's how this issue of started to siphoning money out of black people.
I see.
Actually, yeah,
but
there's actually research papers written about that.
But also there's something interesting that you speak about in the debts, the way that abantu abamnyama have been put into debts currently, and I know that there's been a big story around the interest rates in commercial banks, especially for black people, that interest rates are not the same as those of white people. I can go somewhere and want a loan, want a business loan, a capital or whatever. I won't get it because there is an issue around the high interest rate. And you talk about the Van Zyl case that this person has been contesting these commercial banks. Just give us a glimpse of that particular case, but also tell us, why is this matter of this case, which is very big, of this Afrikaner guy who's fighting with these commercial banks, it is not made a big political potato in South Africa by the ANC government?
Yeah. One, in terms of that issue of South African banks, the research has shown that they have adopted the software that was built by the former apartheid government that is very much into surveillance. The apartheid government was very good in terms of surveillance. So South African banks adopted that software. So it is very good in terms of that surveillance in terms of looking at people. So they are very good at profiling. Hence, they would look at their profiling would go in terms of very race, age, and all of that. I always even say to people, do not even, when you take your family, let's say you go to Monte Casino, don't withdraw money there. Rather go withdraw money outside of Monte Casino and take your family to Spare in Monte Casino. Because if you withdraw inside, then the banks flag that. That's how into surveillance they are. So there is research into that. So they took that and then they've used it against especially black people because it's an apartheid software.
So it's a racist system.
Very much. It's a racist system. That's what it is. We cannot run away from that. And now you get Van Zyl Slabbert, who has been fighting that because you get banks that have been charging blacks very high interest, and he's been fighting these banks, and he's been winning these cases. Surprisingly,
I see. I've looked into it. Yes,
and the only reason that we can say openly that this issue is not being taken seriously is that because he's winning cases against banks for black people. That is why he's even at some point he requested a meeting with the EFF, and then I think that's where maybe he's going to get headway. But the only reason that this matter is just not being taken seriously is that here's a guy who's taking on banks, he's winning, and most of his clients are blacks, and the only reason we can say why is it not being taken why is it not being cast in spotlight?
But you said it's a black. You said we are in a black government, and then these winning black people's cases. Why is the political leadership of government is not taking this thing as a political potato? They lead with it. From your perspective as a political commentator, as a person who analyzes things, what do you think is the reason why is this matter being shoved under the carpet?
Because I always say in some sections of the book that the current government is managing apartheid. This
Okay.
government has been bequeathed apartheid. Simple
Okay.
as that. It's like taking apartheid and putting on a new sign and say this is a democratic South Africa, but the shop is still an old apartheid shop.
So
So
just
this is
repeat
it.
what you just
It's
said. You said just repeat what you said. You said, what does this government do?
this government is managing the old apartheid system. It's apartheid under new management. So you
I
get it's still the old shop. The new sign says Democratic South Africa, but the shop behind it's still just the old apartheid.
Okay, I hear you, and I think that's why I started this with the conversation that South Africa refers to this month as a Freedom Month, and for you, it's clearly from the book you are saying no, 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 no. There's something wrong with the type of freedom that we've achieved, and therefore even the government is part and parcel of maintaining or managing apartheid in a democratic society. And you talk, there are other aspects in the book that you talk about. I want us to run through quickly this last point so that we can then fall back on some of the comments you want to make. You talk about religion, and specifically you talk about Christianity, and you make a deep critique about religion in South Africa, especially Christianity, and how it was used as a vehicle in apartheid, where where the apartheid government um, created an environment where South Africa was seen as a Christian state, and then you then say the post-apartheid South Africa, which is the democratic South Africa, in the Bill of Rights, it is it says South Africa is a secular state. Some people are saying no, no, it's not a secular state; it's a Christian state, but that is religiously neutral. So you criticize extensively Christianity here, and what it does, especially to the people at the location, and you say it makes them docile, it makes them to maintain this Yabas mentality. And why did you thought it was important to engage this particular aspect? Because if you're not a religious scholar or a some people would say, don't talk about things that you don't know.
Well, I had to go back when I had to write that chapter, to talk on how first it came about that people were subjugated. I go back to what Mulife Asante wrote in terms of how the subjugation happened, and how Christianity was involved in the in slavery, and how to this day it still perpetuates that to a certain extent. It becomes a religion that wants people to always be observant, don't question and all of that. So I wrote extensively from the background of Christianity assisting with slavery. And when Christianity assisted with slavery, it then came back and did the same thing with colonialism, and from colonialism it then got into apartheid, and from there on it just stayed mentally with us as Black people to an extent that we had to believe that whatever is said by men of God and all of that, it must go, so to speak. I don't know where you get it, whether you get me. I just want to just go and maybe have go through some
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you can go on if you have a question. I just
Okay.
want to
Okay.
go. Yeah.
No, yeah. While Thamsanqa is looking for this particular code, if you are looking for this book and you want to buy this book, and I encourage you to buy it. This book is available at the most exclusive books: Cresta Mall, Clearwater Mall, OR Tambo, Mall of the South. It is available, but at the same time, it is also available at Book Circle Capital in Melville, in Johannesburg. It is available at Love and Light Cafe in Campus Square in Auckland Park. But most importantly, if you are struggling to get the book, you can order it directly from the publisher on this email address, and then you can engage with the book. But also on the other side, you can engage with the author on Twitter at me Apartheid, or on Facebook at blame me on Apartheid. And I encourage you to ensure that you engage in this book, and it will make you see things in a certain way. And surely I did. And fortunately or unfortunately, mine was autographed, by the way. So I'm grateful. So you had something there that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah.
You can
Just
share
two
that with
things.
us.
Just two things in closing. On the issue of religion, there's this Pentecost, Pentecostal churches that have this highly favored, and you are cursed if you're not, people. We have so much unemployment in the country right now. People will be like, oh, God is cursing me, and churches will be like, yeah, God is cursing you. You have to come and pray. You have to come and tithe, and people are losing monies. And you get other people who, yes, you are doing well, and then you'll be like highly favored. And I question in the book to say, which God would curse you because you are poor and highly favor another person? That is the mental subjugation that Christianity has put the black man to the in this day and age. That is what's happening. That is why we see people flocking to churches and losing their monies, because they believe that if they don't do it, God will curse them, and that is the mental subjugation
So you're
that
saying
I spoke about.
the foundations of this type of religiosity has got its way in the it can be drawn from this apartheid tradition. That's what you're talking about. But for them to be a better people, they must go and be religiously inclined, so that God can favor them. But if if
Yes.
God has not favored you, do you think it was not if God has favored you, was it God who placed you in the township in the first place? Such question.
That's the mentality. That's the mentality that, yeah, well, I'm here, I'm poor because God has put me here.
Mm.
It's that's how it's entrenched.
Mm. Mm.
And with this being Freedom Month, and we need to remember amazwi kalanto kaMamiya uThandiswa Mazwai, when she spoke about the dance of the forgotten free. Our people have been forgotten in the periphery of non-being. That is what I'm writing about in this book. We have been forgotten in the periphery of non-being, and every day we always see ourselves as non-beings. Every day we take the little that we get from the government, because we believe that we deserve little because we are non-beings that are in the periphery, you know. And when we get an RDP house, we believe it's the best for us as non-beings. We are the forgotten free, as Uthandiswa Umamias once declared. This
now tell a person.
Is,
now tell a person who has not bought the book, who has not read the book. Tell them why they should buy this book. What is it that can how will it help them to have this in their library? These are your closing remarks, by the way.
It says here, it takes a lot to be free from the legacy of the creation of the townships and how for generations they have served as a tool to hold you down, break you and discard you to the bin and have you declared a lazy savage, a criminal, xenophobic, lacking entrepreneurial drive, as well as other disparaging titles. The intention with townships was that they should be the worst form of subjugation, the top being slavery. Their special creation has served the purpose of not creating citizens of its inhabitants, down to the progeny. Blame Me on Apartheid is a must-read to understand how the conditions of townships in South Africa are the same as the ghettos in America, as well as the favelas in Brazil, and many other places like them. So, in order for you to understand that you have been made a non-being, and this book also tells you in the last chapter, Guti, lest we forget, you need to get Blame Me on Apartheid.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, my brother and friend, about giving us this time of this. And various people have made comments in this particular book. I know that Advocating Galwana has given a prologue, and also Andile Mqetama, the president of BNF, had also made a review about the book. And he says about the book, Blame Me on Apartheid is a hugely welcome contribution towards Black self-understanding. The township is a place of death where Blacks were abandoned as a surplus labor, readily available for white interests. This book opens another window into understanding how we arrived here and what we need to do to get out. And thank you very much for giving us that book, Malinga. Siyabulela kakhulu, and I appreciate that, and I hope there would be a number of people that would be engaging with you and buying this book. We know, Tinage, in our understanding is that the reading damages your mind. Once you begin to read, your mind will never be the same. Thank you very much, Mtanomhle. Siyabulela kakhulu, and we appreciate you, and thank you to your family for giving us this time. And also, we don't thank the load shedding for not coming through, because it was not supposed to come through in the first place.
Yes.
Enkosi bhuti, makubekhosi. Thank you very much for joining us. That was our guest for the day, Thamsanqa Malinga. And he gave us some of the themes in the conversation, some of the themes in the book, and I hope that you had enjoyed it. I enjoy it as I continue to read. I tend to learn a lot from him and his experiences, and I hope you will do the same. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm saying it once again. Remember to subscribe, and we will meet once again in the next Sunday on the live session. But on Monday, 12 o'clock, this episode will be live on YouTube, and on Wednesday there will be another one, and on Friday at 12 again there will be another one. Umtungwa uyengwa kwamalinge undima kankumbuzo uthando lwethu kaDlanga uthi kuni. Thank you very much for joining us. Siyabulela kakhulu. Bye bye.